This is a spiritual journey for me. I reached my decision through deep prayer, through hard-nosed logic, and I asked myself, what choices must I make to maximize my chances to save America's children and restore national health? I felt that if I refused this opportunity, I would not be able to look myself in the mirror, knowing that I could have saved lives of countless children and reversed this country's chronic disease epidemic. I'm 70 years old. I may have a decade to be effective. I can't imagine that President Harris would allow me or anyone to solve these dire problems. After 8 years of President Harris, any opportunity for me to fix the problem will be out of my reach forever. President Trump has told me that he wants this to be his legacy. I'm choosing to believe that this time he will follow through. His son, his biggest donors, his closest friends, and all support this objective. My joining the Trump campaign will be a difficult sacrifice for my wife and children, but worthwhile if there's even a small chance of saving these kids. Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country and our children is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other. That's why I launched my campaign to unify America. My dad and uncle made such an enduring mark on the character of our nation, not so much because of any particular policies that they promoted, but because they were able to inspire profound love for our country and to fortify our sense of ourselves as a national community held together by ideals. They were able to put their love into the intentions and hearts of ordinary Americans and to unify a national populist movement of Americans, blacks and whites, Hispanics, urban and rural Americans. They inspired affection and love and high hopes and a culture of kindness that continue to radiate among Americans from their memory. That's the spirit on which I ran my campaign and that I intend to bring into the campaign of President Trump. Instead of vitriol and polarization, I will appeal to the values that unite us, the goals that we could achieve if only we weren't at each other's throats. The most unifying theme for all Americans is that we all love our children. If we all unite around that issue now, we can finally give them the protection, the health, and the future that they deserve. Thank you all very much.
It's time to unmask the truth and expose the lies. The occupied forces do not want you to hear this broadcast. Breaking through the censorship and delivering raw, unedited content, it's Joshua Michael with Non-Compliant America.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to August 24th, 2024. In this historical moment in history, this by far will be one of the biggest weekends that all of us are going to remember when looking back at this historic precedent that's happening in the political space and the complete overturn of all the normalcies and all the traditional perspectives of modern day political atmospheres. That has absolutely been shattered. And today is the first day in which we can celebrate humanity at its core and understand that there are people in this world that are here selflessly acting on behalf of the preservation of this country. And it is a day to celebrate that and understand that we are in a spiritual fight, in a spiritual battle. And at the end of the day, God will save us and God will be there. All we have to do is just get on our knees and pray and know that He has us. And at the end of the day, at the fourth hour, at the end quarter, we have to give our thanks to God. So let's just give a moment for that. An historical speech was done by RFK. If you guys haven't heard it, that was just a little segment. We're going to play a lot of clips today of this speech prior to him endorsing Trump, leading up to endorsing Trump, what it means to him, and kind of the spiritual battle that he had to go through to reach this conclusion. I don't see a better outcome in the way that he navigated this. I want to break down what he's doing and what type of contribution he'll make to the Trump administration. There is a moment where he starts tearing up and he gets really emotional. He's a great human being. For 20, 25 years, he's been a litigator, acting on behalf of the victims of Big Pharma. And his heart's really in the right place in regards to fighting the real battles to preserve humanity and protect our children and our futures. This is very hard to put in words for me because I've been very critical of Trump in regards to some of the things that he doesn't talk about versus the things that he does talk about. What this is going to do is this is going to create a modern day founding fathers type coalition, which fundamentally constructed what it is to be American, have disagreements, have discourse between each other, but at the end of the day, have a will and a drive to act on behalf of the country for the betterment of the country. Couple little facts I want to talk about with the founding fathers and also what this means in the political space on how things are going to drastically shift. We got a huge win yesterday in the preservation of this country. I think last night Kamala Harris probably got absolutely wasted because they are panicking in so many ways. But with the Kennedy endorsement happening, completely changes everything politically. And one thing that we don't want to forget is that we still haven't had the election yet. Anything can still happen. We could still have a global war conflict, which I think is going to be the next move. There's going to be additional assassination attempts, both on RFK, Trump. So we need to pray for those guys immensely every single day because we aren't out of the woods. And I want to remind that because it's very important that we understand the war that we're in. We just had a giant victory. This is huge. This is great news, but we're not out of the woods. So let's pray for Trump. Let's pray for RFK. Let's pray for the administration. Let's pray for our families and each other because this is the fight. These are the moments that you're going to be talking to your grandkids about 20, 30 years from now. That speech yesterday is going to go down as one of the most historical speeches, I think, that of our generation and of our time. Aside from the Trump inauguration speech, I think this beat that. And let's not give up hope. Let's not get discouraged and understand we are winning this fight. So in that, I just want to kind of talk about what this is going to mean for the future of the country, having him involved, having all of his followers, his base, and everybody that is all about medical freedom, all about against censorship and free speech and big pharma and cleaning up the food. He talks about how he wants to clean up the food supply and get all these chemicals, these cigarette companies that overtook our food systems in the 90s, on how we're going to restore that. And this is a very, very good moment. I'm still very overwhelmed by this because it's such a good direction that we're taking. You know, I was kind of worried. I always knew I was going for RFK to be Trump's VP pick. And I knew that would be a dynamic duo that would be unbeatable. But I actually think that this outcome is even better because he's able to rally support and he's able to get a cabinet. So think of this cabinet: Tulsi Gabbard, which hasn't made her announcement yet. I predict Tulsi is going to announce her endorsement for Trump, as well as the collaboration of her bidding to be in his cabinet, and them making announcements to her being in the cabinet, which would be a huge win. Elon Musk has already vouched to have government accountability and spending. He's gung-ho about it. They're in collaboration, their talk. Robert F. Kennedy, whether it be Attorney General, which I think Attorney General would be the best position for him. A lot of people are kicking around CIA director, everything else. But Brett Weinstein, yesterday on PBD's podcast, broke down a really good synopsis of why that wouldn't be the best served position for him, because he's kind of limited in doing that. As poetic as it would be, Attorney General, I think, would be a better position, especially considering Robert F. Kennedy's dad was Attorney General at one time. So I want to play some more clips, but I do want to talk about some of the principles of the Founding Fathers and go through the Founding Fathers. Is they didn't have agreements. They didn't all agree on certain things and ideologies and everything else. But for the common good of man, they all came together and they wrote the Declaration of Independence. That's Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, John Adams, Ben Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison. While there were many others that contributed to the founding of the United States, those 7 are considered to be the most founding fathers. While their principles and contributed a lot of different views, and there are dozens who played a smaller role, George Mason, Patrick Henry, John Hancock, Samuel Adams are those that, just to name a few, there were 56 signers. There were 56 men that got together to sign the Declaration of Independence, and that was a big move in the shift and the founding of this country. And each of the Founding Fathers offered a unique contribution to the creation of the Republic. It wasn't just one person, one man, one ideology, one idea. And a lot of the contributions were George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Those are the well-known ones. Numerous others shaped the nation of the Declaration. The Founding Fathers are some of the most important people to study and gain the understanding of American ideals of freedom and liberty. The lives of these men are essential to understanding America, to form the government and our ideals of liberty. Founding fathers who were able to do what had to be dreamed of in Europe. Now, how they accomplished what they did essentially is the study of American history and understanding the global timeless impact of their works. And it's very important that we study this. The Founding Fathers are often viewed as largely in agreement and are often referred to as a single entity that all work together to create the American nation. In reality, they had extremely different views on all sorts of issues, including the role of the federal government, the issues of slavery, how the radical or moderate American Revolution should be, how they should perform. At times, these differences of opinions destroyed friendships and threatened to pull the country apart. Now, it's important to remember this because there are fundamental differences between RFK and Trump. But them working together in a concerted effort to restore the American system, to restore the American dream, the American values, and the prosperity of the country by locking up the borders. There's a phenomenal Tucker Carlson interview where they break down autism rates and how we're the number one in the world of the most sick and the most dysfunctional country, even though we should have the most healthiest people and children out there. And so the fact that this is going on, a huge shakeup going into the weekend. You're listening to Joshua Michael, Noncompliant. Please like and subscribe. Go to noncompliantamerica.com. Follow me on X at noncompliantaf. More RFK videos coming up. We'll be right back. Just a clouds away.
I just wanna pay my bills, rapping about the way I feel. Oh yeah, I just wanna make a couple mil, leave it to the fam and the will. Oh yeah, I just wanna sign a record deal, maybe buy a house up in the hills. Oh yeah.
All right, welcome back, folks. Non-compliant America. Joshua, Michael, welcome to this historical moment. One of the most historical moments to date that we've seen, short from the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The American liberty spirit is rising. Can you feel it? What a great day. We aren't out of the woods yet. This is going to take a massive amount of will and energy from every single one of you. And everything that you can do right now is like, subscribe, share this podcast, share this show, spread the good message of truth, because truth, at the end of the day, no matter what, is what's going to set you free. Now, I want to go into some more clips from RFK, and then I want to play his short speech that he did at the Trump rally. And yes, he was at the Trump rally last night, and the doors blew off as he's walking out, because this represents the restoring of humanity and the preservation of this country. There is nothing more poetic and biblical than these times that we're living in. Now, the question to think about is, what are they going to do to counter this? The DNC, you see all the propaganda everywhere of the DNC had the most views ever, way more than the RNC. Harris is winning, all this stuff. The only thing, I have just a little short sentence that I want to say to all of that. Remember in 2015, 2016, going into the presidential election, right before the election actually happened, Hillary Clinton, according to all these polls, I've never been polled. Have you been polled? I've never done a poll. I've never been asked, aside from, Elon Musk asking who the president or who you would vote for president. I think it was 85% said Trump. Unskewed, unbiased, over 5 million votes happened on that. But I've never been polled. I don't even know where they get these polls. We all know if you dig deep down in a lot of these polls, and so don't get bamboozled and hoodwinked into thinking that the DNC or the Camel Toe Camp or Comrade Kamala have a chance against this dynamic duo that was just formed yesterday. Remember, they said 99% chance Hillary Clinton was going to win the day before the election, and we know what happened. So there's going to be a massive amount of theft happening that we need to all now get on board and unify around how important this election is. We can't sit on the couch. I don't care if you're in a blue state. I don't care if you're in Oregon. I don't care if you have this no hope, Multnomah County runs everything. BS. That's not true. This is a red state. There's a couple little blue counties that seem to be swaying a lot of things, but listen, at the end of the day, you have an opportunity and you have an obligation as a citizen to get out and vote. It's extremely important. Extremely important. Now, before we go to the next break, I do want to play another RFK speech. This was his speech prior to the rally, but it's very, very eye-opening in regards to what made his decision and what drew him to Trump. So as these people are attacking all of these people, as the DNC is attacking RFK, he was denied Secret Service protection, a bunch of legal warfare. I think he had like 12 cases to try to get his name on the ballot and a bunch of stuff. They revoked his ballot from New York. All this lawfare that's going on by our corrupt system drew him to Trump, similar to the way the United States and the adversaries are drawing Russia to China. I want to talk about that coalition happening as well. It's strategic. They're purposely trying to poke the bear to create conflict. They're doing it domestically as well as outside. But take a listen to this speech, because this talks about the legal warfare against Trump and RFK. Take a listen.
Both President Trump and myself. Then, when a predictably bungled debate performance precipitated the palace coup against President Biden, The same shadowy DNC operatives appointed his successor, Vice President Harris, has not appeared in a single interview or an unscripted encounter with voters for 35 days. This is profoundly undemocratic. How are people to choose when they don't know whom they are choosing? And how can this look to the rest of the world? My father and my uncle were always conscious of America's image abroad because of our nation's role as the template for democracy, the role model for democratic processes, and the leader of the free world. Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters. What most alarms me isn't how the Democratic Party conducts its internal affairs or runs its candidates. What alarms me is the resort to censorship and media control and the weaponization of the federal agencies.
What a very, very good point. And again, he's talking about how the lawfare is being conducted against him as well, and what chose to have him run as an independent, which was never really done before. We've never had in our modern times a Democrat such as a Kennedy, which is the foundation of the modern day Democratic Party. But what's really interesting is how that has set him up to do this Trump endorsement. And there's an old movie called, gosh, I can't think of the name right now. I had it right. I was just going to talk about it. But, the Real Red Pill, or the Red Pill. And it talks about this one woman who is a hardcore feminist. And she started doing research on these male groups and, male groups that are pro-men, and really dug deep. And eventually she was actually outed from the feminist movement for simply asking questions. They don't want the truth getting out there, folks. They don't want you having conversations. That's why this show and all other shows and independent journalism is the most critical fight that we can have today. We'll be right back.
From days of long ago, from uncharted regions of the universe, comes a legend. The legend of Voltron, defender of the universe. A mighty robot, loved by good, feared by evil. As Voltron's legend grew, peace settled across the galaxy. On planet Earth, a galaxy alliance was formed. Together with the good planets of the solar system, they maintained peace throughout the universe. Until a new, horrible menace threatened the galaxy. Voltron was needed once more. This is the story of the super force of space explorers. Specially trained and sent by the Alliance to bring back Voltron, defender of the universe.
All right, we're having a little bit more fun here today. Again, historic moment, historic weekend here. I want to play the full RFK speech because it is getting censored everywhere. Besides, certain channels of the internet. But I think it's very important that you guys all hear this speech in its entirety, just so you have a grasp of what is actually happening. CNN, famously, being censorships that they are and being the censors that they are, during his initial speech prior to his endorsement, as he's talking bad about the DNC, they actually fade him out right in the middle of him bashing the Kamala Harris camp and him talking about how he outreached to them, stuff like that. So since they're doing that, we're not going to have those censorships. We're not going to do that. I'm going to play the full speech in its entirety at the Trump rally. Take a listen.
So, Bobby, please say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President Trump.
Again, you're listening to the Bobby Kennedy speech at the Trump rally last night.
Thank you. A few hours after his assassination attempt at Butler, I got a call from a safe food advocate named Kelly Means, who's been fighting for many years to try to end the corruption at CDC and FDA and USDA. And these institutions, these regulatory agencies, are actually run by the big food processing companies, the big ag and the chemical companies that they're supposed to regulate. And he said to me that he'd been advising me for many years and on my campaign. And he told me that night that he was also advising President Trump. And he asked if I would talk to President Trump. And I said, of course. And about a few minutes later, I got a call from the president. And we talked. We had a very good talk. And then he invited me to come see him the next day. And I went to Minneapolis and saw him. We met again a couple of weeks later in Florida. And we talked about, not about the things that separate us because we don't agree on everything, but on the values and the issues that bind us together. And one of the issues that he talked about was having safe food and ending the chronic disease epidemic. Our children are now the unhealthiest, sickest children in the world. Don't you want healthy children? And don't you want the chemicals out of our food? And don't you want the regulatory agencies to be free from corporate corruption? And that's what President Trump told me that he wanted. He also told me that he wanted to end the grip of the neocons on U.S. foreign policy. He said he didn't want any more $200 billion wars in Ukraine, that we could use that money back here in the United States. And the safest, the best way to build a safe America is to rebuild our industrial base and rebuild the middle class in this country. And don't you want a president who's going to get us out of the wars and who's going to rebuild the middle class in this country? And he told me that he wanted to end the censorship because the whole basis of American democracy is the free flow of information. And we know that a government that can silence its opponents has license for any kind of atrocity. And can you think of any time that you can look back in history and say that the people who were censoring were the good guys? They're always the bad guys, because it's always the first step down that slippery slope to totalitarianism. And don't you want a president who's going to protect America's freedoms? And who is going to protect us against totalitarianism? And I want to ask you again, don't you want a safe environment for your children? Don't you want to know that the food that you're feeding them is not filled with chemicals that are going to give them cancer and chronic disease? And don't you want a president that's going to make America healthy again? Thank you all very, very much, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. What an amazing, amazing moment. So what is this going to signify? How are the predator class, the tyrannical censors at the DNC, the overlords on these corporations, BlackRock, how are they going to fight back against this? And as great and as a moment of history this is, we are definitely winning the culture war now, hands down. The coalition has been set. How are they going to fight back? I would anticipate that they're going to accelerate different types of black swan events. So we have to be frosty. We have to stay vigilant. We have to push this all the way through to the end, not to the actual election, well past the election day. We had a reprieve. We have an opportunity. And this is the end. This is the end all be all. This is the great awakening moment that we have, and it's going to be up to us as the individuals at a local state level. As exciting as this is, these guys need all of us to reach across, grab the communities, and push this thing all the way through, and we need all of their support. If you can donate to the campaign, I definitely would. And if you can help out and support shows like mine, we're giving away Tucker Carlson tickets. That should be live any day now. We had a hiccup in regards to the deployment, so if you want to get on that, write me at jm@noncompliantamerica.com. If you want to enter for a chance to win 2 Tucker Carlson tickets, floor seats, it's a phenomenal opportunity to go see and be a part of this movement and be a part of this wave. As you know, Tucker Carlson is a huge advocate for free speech and has absolutely decimated the censors because he was in the camp. He was on that wagon, and now he's not. People are rejecting the mainstream system in its entirety. And the new movement is these free and independent journalists going around and asking our representatives real questions, getting through, getting them out of their script that they've been running all these massive hoaxes around us and penetrating that. That is the fight that we are in. With the help of Elon Musk, I don't have Facebook, I don't have Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that. You can only find me on X at noncompliantaf. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow me because it's important. And support radio stations like 104.3 FM here at KSLM. We are in the fight. We're in the battle. We're giving you this hard-cutting news every single day, and it is a great source of information. Should the internet ever get turned off, we'll still have the radio wave, so we need to make sure to support this station and donate, volunteer, ask them how you can help, and get involved in this election process because we're going to be on the airwaves giving you reporting live information, giving you all the real information at the most cutting-edge moments before everybody else, because all the radio hosts got the tail end of this on a Friday afternoon, you're getting the first look at what the media cycle is going to be for next week. You're listening to Non-Compliant America. We'll be right back.
We making all of this money. Yeah, I know it's rude to be bragging. They never catching us lagging. Me and my buddy, we working hard for this money.
If the road were easy, everyone would take it. We don't shy away from challenges. We dive in. And now, live from an undisclosed location in FEMA Region 10, it's your host, Joshua Michael.
Welcome back, folks. Just like clockwork, you would imagine the DNC is panicking tremendously. The smears have already begun in regards to an author is now claiming that RFK Jr. was a coke dealer at Harvard. And as a teenager, supposedly in Nebraska, this guy would smoke cannabis and dropped acid before I got into Harvard in 1972. He says, sometimes during my freshman year, I tried cocaine, enjoyed it later, and decided to procure. The dealer was Bobby Kennedy. You know what? Here's the thing. He's real, and, you know, everybody makes decisions in our lives, and they do things. Who cares? Who cares? He's got street cred. Good for him. You know, I don't look down on that. I really personally don't care. You know, everybody has a past, and everybody, you know, does things. It's what they're doing now and the decisions that they make today and the future on what really decides a character with an individual. You know, we all have different things that we can go into, and things that we've done that we weren't proud of. But you know what? You learn from your mistakes. Some people do. And if you don't learn from your mistakes, then you are obviously continuing on your path in your place that you're at. But, you know, I think there is a time and a place for forgiveness. You know, only God can really judge people, and you judge people by the content of their character, not things that they did in college or high school, right? And the reason we're so critical, you know, of Joe Biden and all those crazy people is because they're continuing to do bad things. They're continuing to do evil. They're continuing to be evil and not do what's right in those positions of power. But also CNN says this is a huge deal for Trump, and they say that the RFK endorsement could win the election for Trump. So on CNN Friday night, Burnett considered the potential impact of the Kennedy's endorsement on the election as the basis of the latest poll performing that it could swing states up to 5 or 6%, 5 or 6 points. Now, you think it's not a big deal. Actually, in the case, it's huge. Take a listen.
Time. Today, RFK Jr. had suspended his campaign endorsing Trump. Kennedy telling reporters that Trump had asked him to, quote, enlist him in his administration. Now, the latest swing state polls show Kennedy with 5 or 6% of the vote. And so when you think about it overall, you may say, well, that's not a big deal. Actually, if that is the case in swing states, it is huge. It is everything. It is more than the margin between Harris and Trump in some of those same states.
And they're panicking. So what are they going to do? That's the bigger question, is what is the establishment going to do now? Because, again, this is a huge death blow. Huge. Ginormous. Ginormous. RFK Jr. dealt a real blow to the Dems. Newt Gingrich talks about. Says that his relatives... So, and this is another thing that I wanted to get into, why this is so historic. Because if you listen into his speech, and I didn't play that part, where he's talking about his family and how his wife, who's a huge liberal, was against this, is a big anti-Trumper, she hates Trump, and how he needs to explain to them that this is for the betterment and this is the self-sacrifice that he has to do. But even his own family has come out against him and they had a public post with listing all their names on why, they're basically disowning him for making this move. I just don't understand that. It shows the true hatred that is amongst people, and how unreasonable they are. If they don't realize that jumping on a ship that is going to the moon, because it's not your own ship, you're just not going to do it. It just doesn't make sense to me. This is what being American is about. This is the foundation of everything. Our very large, advocates for the country coming together in a collaborated effort to preserve the wealth and nation of the nation. I know that didn't make sense, but it's crazy, but it just shows the sacrifice. I mean, if anybody that's married knows, happy wife, happy life type scenario. I mean, but the betterment of humanity is more important than how his wife feels about certain things. If he has prayed about it and done deep thinking, you got to understand that this was a giant decision. Wanted to get into a couple other things in regards to Oregon. The gun advocate group, Oregon Firearms Federation, has had a huge blow to all Oregonians. From Kevin Starrett, he posted, "Build a gun, go to jail." Judge Adrian Nelson denied their request for the restraining order to delay the implementation of HB 2005, the bill banning the ownership of privately made firearms, which is a constitutional right. A brief review of her decision, you can read it if you want. I'll post it on my X page. Determined the effort to avoid both common sense and understanding in plain English, but it will also display the dangers of our side playing their game and accepting limitations that the founders never imagined. HB 2005 will turn thousands of law-abiding citizens into criminals and perpetuate a bigoted myth that innovative and talented people have criminal intent because they like to make things themselves. The urge that Oregon lawmakers to subject the people is truly insoluble. And Oregon's judges' blatant, arrogant disregard for the clear dictate of the Supreme Court's chilling ruling. It will come as no surprise that Judge Nelson was a Kate Brown appointee, elevated by the federal court and soon to be removed by Joe Biden. So what does this mean for the people who own personal manufactured firearms? It's impossible to say. But the suspension and or the delay on the implementation of 2005 was denied. And so it's a very, very critical moment for these things. If you want to support the Oregon Firearms Federation, go to OFF, Oregon Firearms Federation.com, and reach out to Kevin, make a donation, because he is actually in the fight. He's not some constitutional carry grifter trying to gather signatures for political gain. He's not Oregon gun rights and the Reagan Knopp shenanigan. He's an actual gun right advocate group that is no compromise, and we need to get behind great people like him. In that, I just got one more special announcement I want to make before we head out. We are in the process. Something called Operation 1776 is underway, and it's going to have a massive effect on our local elections in being able to elevate great people and give them the tools and necessities to do outreach. And we're in the process of doing that. And we're not going to have the normal stay behind groups, the career politicians that are no longer going to have a say with what we do in the election process here in Oregon. We're going to be able to restore things, and I personally believe this is going to be a giant, giant shift in Oregon politics. And it's going to give us an opportunity to really get the candidates that we like Lithicum. DeReamer, I think, is on our way out. We're going to put good candidates. Whether the political affiliation aligns with anything, it's going to be about the preservation of Oregon and for the betterment of the Oregon people. And so there's a libertarian candidate that's going against DeReamer that we're going to start getting behind, Sonia, and I'm going to try to get her on the next week's show because we are in the fight, folks. Thanks for listening. Joshua Michael, Non-Compliant. We'll see you next week.